When my own son looked me in the eyes and said, "You're too old. Move to a nursing home," I felt my heart shatter. But that was only the beginning. He went behind my back, sold my house for $2.5 million, and kept all the money for himself. A week later, the police showed up at his door, and what they revealed made him drop to his knees. If you're following my story, make sure you subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'd love to know. My name is Grace Miller. I am 67 years old, and this house I live in has been my home for over 40 years. My late husband, John, and I built our life here. Every brick, every photo on the wall, every flower in the garden carries memories of the life we created together. To me, it's more than a house. It's the story of my family, the place where my children grew up, where we laughed, celebrated birthdays, and weathered storms together. Since John passed, the house has been quieter, but it still gives me comfort. My daughter Rachel lives a few states away, but she calls often and comes whenever she can. She always tells me, "Mom, don't ever think you're alone. I'm here." She has a gentle heart, just like her. Then there's my son, Eric. He's 35, smart but restless. Ever since he was young, he's been chasing money and quick success. He believes everything has a price, even family. After John's death, he started helping me with finances, or at least that's what I thought. He would sigh whenever I made decisions and act like I was too old to understand anything. One evening, while we were having dinner at the table, Eric put down his fork and looked at me with impatience. "Mom, you can't live in this big house anymore. You're too old. It's time to move into a nursing home." I froze. "Eric, this is my home," I said quietly. "I'm not ready to leave it. I take care of myself. I can cook, clean, and live just fine." He shook his head. "You don't understand. It's not practical. You're alone here, and it's too much for you. It would be better if you sold the..." My heart sank. He didn't understand at all. To him, it was just a property. To me, it was everything. I told him no, that this house was mine, and I wasn't leaving. He pushed his chair back, annoyed, and said, "You'll see, Mom. This isn't the way." That night, I sat in my living room staring at the family, my chest heavy with sadness. How could my own... Didn't he see that this house was all out of John, of our life together? I felt the first sting of betrayal, though I didn't yet realize how deep it would. At the same time, Rachel called me. I told her what happened, and she grew quiet before saying, "Mom, don't let him pressure you. That house is yours. Dad wanted you to stay safe and happy. If Eric can't respect that, then he's wrong." Her words comforted me, but a shadow of fear still lingered in my heart. I didn't know then what Eric was already planning behind my back. A few weeks after that tense dinner with Eric, I noticed him spending more and more time at my house, usually in my study where I kept important files. He told me he was helping organize the paperwork because it was too much for me. I didn't think much of it at first. After all, he was my son, and even though his words hurt me, I still trusted him. I wanted to believe he was trying to take care of me in his own way. One afternoon, I returned home from grocery shopping and found two strangers walking through my living room with a real estate agent. My heart nearly stopped. They were peeking into rooms, commenting on the size and the light from the windows. I dropped my bags on the floor and asked sharply, "What is going on here?" The agent turned, her smile fading when she saw my expression. "Oh, Mrs. Miller, I thought you knew. Your son arranged everything. The house has been sold." My knees went weak. "Sold? What do you mean sold? This is my home. I never agreed to sell anything." The couple looked uncomfortable and excused themselves quickly. The agent shifted nervously. "Eric handled the paperwork. He said you were moving into assisted living. The closing already went through." I felt dizzy, my hands shaking. "That's impossible. I never signed anything." That night, I confronted Eric. He didn't even look guilty. In fact, he seemed irritated that I had found out. "Mom, you're overreacting," he said flatly. "The house is gone. It's better this way. You don't need all this space. The money will be put to good use." Tears burned in my eyes. "Put to good use? Eric, that house was my life. Where am I supposed to go? How could you do this without even asking me?" He crossed his arms and leaned back, his face hard. "It's my inheritance anyway. Why should you cling to it? You're too old to live alone. I'll take care of things from here." I felt something inside me break. This wasn't just about the house. It was about betrayal. My own son, the child I carried, raised and loved, had stolen the one thing that kept me connected to my past and my husband. I wanted to scream, but my voice came out as a whisper. You've taken everything from me. The next day, I called Rachel. The moment she heard my voice, she knew something was wrong. Mom, what happened? She asked, her voice urgent. Through sobs, I explained. There was silence on the line, and then she burst out, I can't believe him. How could Eric do this to you? He had no right. Mom, this isn't just cruel. It's illegal. Her anger gave me strength, but the despair still sat heavy in my chest. Rachel, I don't know what to do. I don't even understand how he managed. I never signed any papers, Rachel replied firmly. Then he forged them, or he tricked you into signing something without knowing. Either way, we're not letting this go. You deserve better than this. In the following days, my reality became a nightmare. I was told by the realtor that the house had already been transferred, the money wired into an account Eric controlled. I was left with nothing. The rooms that once held laughter now felt like empty shells. I wandered from space to space, touching the walls, the furniture, every photo frame, wondering if I would have to leave it all behind. Eric avoided me most of the time, but when we did cross paths, he acted as if I was being dramatic. You should be grateful, he snapped one afternoon. I freed you from the burden of this place. You should thank me. His words cut like knives. I wasn't a burden. I wasn't useless. I was still his mother, the woman who had sacrificed to raise him, to give him everything I could. But in his eyes, I was nothing more than an obstacle between him and money. Rachel drove in to see me that weekend. When she arrived, she hugged me tightly and whispered, Don't worry, Mom. We'll fix this. He won't get away with it. Her presence was a balm to my broken spirit. Together, we sat at the kitchen table, looking through what little paperwork I still had. Rachel tapped her finger on a blank space in one contract. See this? Your signature looks nothing like this. Mom, this is forgery. Hearing those words made my heart race, but also gave me a sliver of hope. If Eric had lied and forged my signature, then maybe I wasn't powerless after all. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I replayed everything in my mind. My son had betrayed me, stolen from me, and treated me as if I didn't matter. But maybe this wasn't the end. Maybe, with Rachel by my side, I could fight back. For the first time in weeks, I felt the spark of determination flicker inside me. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, the phone rang. It was the bank asking me to confirm details about a large transfer Eric had made. My hands shook as I held the phone, realizing just how deep his scheme went. I didn't know it yet, but this was the moment that would set everything in motion, the moment where betrayal would finally meet justice. After the call from the bank about Eric's transfer, I sat at my kitchen table with the phone still in my hand, my heart pounding. I realized then that this wasn't just betrayal anymore, it was fraud. My son hadn't only sold my home without my consent, he was moving large amounts of money around as if it were his own. For the first time in my life, I was forced to admit something painful. My child had stolen from me, and if I didn't fight back, I would lose everything. Rachel was sitting across from me, watching my face. What did they say? She asked gently. I swallowed hard and told her about the bank's call. Her eyes widened. That's it, Mom. That's the evidence. He didn't just cheat you. He committed a crime. Her words lit a fire inside me. I had always been a quiet woman, someone who avoided conflict, someone who believed family should be forgiven no matter what. But in that moment, I realized forgiveness couldn't undo the damage Eric had done. He had taken my house, my security, and my dignity. If I let him walk away with it all, I would be telling him that what he did was acceptable. I couldn't do that. Not for me, and not for the memory of the husband who built that home with me. Rachel leaned forward, gripping my hands. We're going to the police. We'll bring every piece of paperwork we can find. We'll show them your real signature, and we'll prove he forged it. You don't have to go through this alone. I hesitated, tears welling in my eyes. He's still my son, Rachel. How do I live with myself if I send my own child to jail? Her voice softened, but she didn't let go of my hands. Mom, he made that choice, not you. He stole from you. He lied to you. If you stay quiet, he'll keep taking until you have nothing left. Sometimes love means protecting yourself, even if it hurts. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked from room to room, running my fingers along the walls, looking at the family photos on the shelves. I stopped at one picture of Eric as a boy, grinning in his baseball uniform, his glove too big for his little hand. I remembered cheering from the bleachers, my heart swelling with pride. My baby boy. How had he turned into this man who could betray me so deeply? The grief was heavy, but beneath it, I felt a growing resolve. I whispered to the photo, "I love you, but I won't let you destroy me." The next morning, Rachel drove me to the police station. My hands trembled as I clutched the folder of documents we had gathered. The deed to the house, my identification, samples of my real signature, and the fraudulent papers Eric had submitted. Walking into that station felt like stepping into a different world, one where I wasn't just a mother, but a victim seeking justice. We sat down with a detective named Officer Harris, a middle-aged man with a calm voice and steady eyes. He listened carefully as I explained what had happened, his expression growing more serious with each detail. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and said, "Mrs. Miller, what your son did is elder financial exploitation. It's a serious crime. If he forged your signature, that's fraud. We'll need to collect evidence, but from what you've shown me, this case is strong." My stomach turned hearing the word crime used about my own son, but I nodded. "I don't want to hurt him," I admitted, my voice cracking. "But he's left me no choice. He took everything I had." Officer Harris gave me a sympathetic look. "You're doing the right thing. Standing up for yourself doesn't mean you don't love him. It means you value yourself too." Rachel squeezed my hand, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a sense of hope. The police began their investigation immediately. They contacted the bank, reviewed the forged documents, and traced the transfer of funds into Eric's personal accounts. Each step they uncovered made me both sick with sadness and strong with determination. The truth was no longer hidden. In the meantime, Rachel arranged for me to stay temporarily at her apartment. It wasn't the same as being in my own home, but it was safe, and I felt her love surrounding me. Every evening, she reminded me, "Mom, this isn't the end. You will get your home back a week later." Officer Harris called. His voice was steady, but I could hear the weight of the news he carried. "Mrs. Miller, we have everything we need. We'll be visiting Eric today. I wanted you to know before it happens." I sat in silence for a moment, my heart heavy. This was the moment I had been dreading and waiting for all at once. My son would finally face the consequences of what he had done. Part of me wanted to beg the officer to stop, to protect Eric from what was coming, but another part of me knew there was no turning back. Justice had to be served. Rachel placed her arm around my shoulders. "Mom, this is what Dad would have wanted. He'd want you to stand strong. You're not losing a son today. You're protecting yourself." As I hung up the phone, I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. I was no longer just the victim of Eric's betrayal. I was a mother who had chosen to fight for her dignity, her security, and the life her husband had built with her. I didn't know exactly what would happen when the police knocked on Eric's door, but I knew one thing for certain. The power had shifted. For the first time since this nightmare began, Eric was the one who had to answer, not me. The morning the police visited Eric is one I will never forget. Rachel and I were sitting at her kitchen table, the silence between us heavy. I couldn't stop staring at the phone, waiting for it to ring, knowing that whatever happened that day would change our family forever. I tried to sip my coffee, but my hands were shaking too badly. Rachel reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Mom, whatever happens today, you did the right thing. You stood up for yourself. That's something to be proud of." I nodded, but my chest felt tight. No mother ever imagines calling the police on her own child. Yet, here I was, watching justice approach like a storm I couldn't stop. Later that afternoon, Officer Harris called me. His tone was calm, but I could tell he was speaking carefully, measuring each word. "Mrs. Miller, we've just confronted your son at his residence. He admitted to moving the funds into his account, but he's claiming you gave him verbal permission. We showed him the forged documents and the bank transfers. He went pale, ma'am, completely pale. When we told him forgery is a felony and that elder financial abuse carries severe penalties, he dropped to his knees. He realized he couldn't talk his way out of it. I closed my eyes as tears rolled down my cheeks. A mix of emotions washed over me: relief, sorrow, anger, and even a touch of pity. I imagined my son, once a little boy running through our yard with scraped knees, now brought to his own knees by the choices he had made. Rachel leaned closer, whispering, "What did they say, Mom?" I repeated the officer's words, my voice trembling. Rachel hugged me tightly. "He finally knows what he's done. He can't hide from it anymore." Officer Harris continued, "We're pressing charges for fraud and exploitation. He'll need to appear in court, and the house sale will be investigated for reversal. The money is being frozen until the case is resolved. I know this isn't easy for you, but I promise, justice is moving forward." After I hung up, I sat in silence, staring at nothing. My son had taken so much from me, but in that moment, I realized he could no longer take my power. The law had seen the truth. He couldn't dismiss me anymore, couldn't belittle me, couldn't tell me I deserved nothing. A few days later, I was asked to attend a preliminary hearing. Sitting in that courtroom was one of the hardest moments of my life. Eric sat across the room, his head down, no longer confident or arrogant. When the prosecutor laid out the evidence, bank transfers, forged documents, false statements, I watched my son's shoulders slump lower and lower. At one point, his lawyer whispered frantically in his ear, but Eric barely responded. His face was pale, his hands fidgeting with the cuffs of his shirt. For the first time, I saw shame on him, a shame so heavy, it bent him. The judge looked directly at Eric and said firmly, "These actions show a deliberate attempt to defraud your own mother, a vulnerable elder. This is a serious matter. Do you have anything to say for yourself?" Eric stood, his voice shaking. I just thought it would be easier if I handled everything. I thought I deserved it. I didn't think she would fight back." Hearing those words pierced me. He didn't even deny it. He admitted it, though in his own twisted way. He thought I wouldn't fight. He thought I would stay silent, too weak to protect myself. That was the moment I knew Daniel, my late husband, would be proud of me, because I had fought. When the judge announced the charges would proceed, Eric sat down hard, his face crumpling. He looked like a boy again, lost and overwhelmed. My heart ached, but I didn't look away. This was the cost of his choices. After the hearing, Rachel held my arm as we walked out of the courthouse. "Mom, you were incredible in there. You stayed strong," I whispered back. "I never thought I'd be in a courtroom against my own son, but he left me no choice." In the following days, word spread quickly in the community. Neighbors who had known us for years came to me quietly, offering support. Some shook their heads in disbelief. Others said they weren't surprised, that Eric had always seemed too hungry for wealth. Their words stung, but they also reminded me that I wasn't crazy, and I wasn't alone. That night, Rachel and I sat together on her balcony, watching the sunset. She handed me a cup of tea and said, "You've done it, Mom. You've taken your power back." I nodded, staring at the horizon. "I just wish it didn't have to be like this. He's still my son." Rachel placed her hand on mine. "And you're still his mother. But being a mother doesn't mean letting him destroy you. You taught him right from wrong. He chose this path. Now, he has to live with it." I sipped the tea slowly, letting her words sink in. I knew the journey wasn't over. There would be more hearings, more legal steps, more pain to endure. But the climax had already happened. The truth had been revealed, and Eric could no longer deny it. He had been brought to his knees, not by me, but by his own actions. For the first time in months, I felt peace in my chest. Justice wasn't finished, but it had begun, and that was enough to give me hope. When the court proceedings finally ended, I walked out of the courthouse with Rachel by my side, feeling both exhausted and lighter than I had in months. The judge had frozen the stolen money, the sale of my home was declared fraudulent, and the property was legally returned to me. For the first time since Eric's betrayal, I felt like I could breathe again. My house, my memories, my history with John, my safe place, was mine once more. It wasn't just about the bricks and the walls. It was about dignity. It was about proving that my voice still mattered, even if my own son had tried to silence it. Rachel drove me back to the house the day it was officially restored. As we pulled into the driveway, I stared at the familiar front porch where John and I had spent countless evenings. I stepped out of the car, and touched the railing, tears streaming down my cheeks. I whispered, "I'm home." Walking through the front door was overwhelming. The furniture was still there, the family pictures still lined the hallway, and the smell of my garden drifted in through the kitchen window. For a moment, it felt as if the nightmare had never happened, but I knew it had. The scars were still there, hidden under the surface, but I also knew I had survived it. Rachel hugged me from behind. "You did it, Mom. You stood up for yourself, and you won." I nodded, but my heart was heavy too. Winning didn't erase the fact that my son was facing punishment for what he had done. As much as I wanted to celebrate, part of me was still grieving, not just for what I had almost lost, but for the boy I had raised, the one who had once looked at me with love and trust. The weeks that followed were strange. Neighbors stopped by with casseroles, words of support, and hugs. Some told me they admired my courage, that they didn't know if they could have been as strong. Others admitted they had seen signs of Eric's greed long before, and they weren't surprised. Hearing that hurt, but it also reminded me that his choices were his own, not mine. Rachel moved in temporarily to help me settle back in and make the house feel safe again. Every morning, we shared coffee in the kitchen, talking about little things. Her work, the garden, my plans for repainting the living room. Life began to feel normal again, though I knew it would never be exactly the same. One evening, Rachel and I sat on the porch watching the sun go down. I broke the silence. I keep asking myself if I failed him somehow, if I raised him wrong. Rachel shook her head firmly. "Mom, you didn't fail him. You gave him everything you could. He made his own choices. You can love someone and still hold them accountable." Her words were a balm to my wounded heart. I realized she was right. Being a mother didn't mean protecting Eric from consequences. It meant teaching him right from wrong, and if he refused to live by those lessons, then the responsibility was his alone. In time, I began to heal. I spent afternoons in my garden, planting new flowers and watching them bloom. I joined a local community group, connecting with other seniors who had faced struggles of their own. I learned that my story wasn't unique. So many older parents had been taken advantage of by the very children they loved. That thought was heartbreaking, but it also made me stronger. I wasn't alone, and by speaking up, I hoped I could inspire others to protect themselves too. Looking back, I learned something powerful. Growing older doesn't mean becoming invisible. We still matter. We still have the right to be heard, to be respected, and to live with dignity. My son tried to take those things away from me, but he failed, and in the end, I gained something I never expected, proof that I was stronger than I ever knew. Now, when I sit on my porch in the evenings, sipping tea and watching the sky turn shades of pink and orange, I think of John. I imagine him smiling, proud that I didn't give up, proud that I fought for the home we built together. I whisper, "We're okay now." As for Eric, I don't know what the future holds. My heart still loves him, but I cannot forget what he did. Forgiveness may come one day, but it will never erase the truth. What I do know is that I will never again allow anyone, not even my own child, to make me feel powerless. This experience has taught me that strength can be found in the darkest of times, and justice can arrive when you least expect it. It taught me that even when betrayal comes from the person you love most, you can stand tall and reclaim your life. And so, I share my story not just as a warning, but as a message of hope. If you've ever been told you're too old, too weak, or that your voice doesn't matter, remember this: you have more power than you think. Don't let anyone take it away from you. If my story moved you, please subscribe to my channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'd love to hear from you.